Hey, it's Benji Cole, son of Al Cole from CBS Radio and host of the syndicated talk show, People of Distinction. The talk that gives you an in-depth view of some of the most dynamic, intelligent, and successful people on the planet. Run to our website, alcoleenterprises.com for more info. Email me directly through Benji at alcoleenterprises.com if you'd like to get involved with what we have going. And as always, please continue to like and support our broadcasts. People of Distinction is an internationally syndicated show because of viewers like you. People, we're available on all major podcasts as well as YouTube. So if you keep following, we're going to continue to put out the content. All right, we appreciate the support. Keep on showing the love, and do me a favor, sit back and strap in because we are very excited to showcase this next guest here with us on our network. And on the line with us today, we have Robert Ackerman. Now, a lot of you may remember Robert when he was on our network previously. Well, listen, we had such a great time. The reviews were so favorable that it was a no-brainer. We had to invite Robert back on. And we're going to be discussing his amazing book, Buff. Available for purchase through Amazon, Barnes & Noble, all of the regular online book resellers. Head on over there today, pick up your copies, and get lost in this magnificent journey. Before we go any further, I want to take this opportunity and point out that Robert was brought to our network by one of the best firms in the business. People, you know I'm talking about Quipper Prints. So for my writers out there who have gone through their process creating your masterpiece, and now you've done it, okay? You need help moving the book that you just finished developing though. Well, if that's you, contact Quipper Prints. They're one of the best in the business to do it, and this is exactly what they specialize in. So head on over to quipperprints.com today and gather all the ways that their fantastic team is going to help you do just that. And listen, it is an absolute pleasure to have Robert here on the line. People, I'm telling you, we're going to be covering a whole host of things today, not only with regards to this magnificent novel, Buff, but also a lot of Robert's background and his own journey and things that he has encountered and has overcome. But this book is something that offers a wonderful balance between being entertaining to no end, but also having a great underlying theme and message that you're going to be able to take to the bank as well. This book is something taken directly out of a Hollywood film, taken directly out of a comic book strip. It follows his main protagonist who has a genetic abnormality that gives him superhuman strength. A modern interpretation of the Hulk. I'm telling you, this is something amazing that you're going to be able to get lost in and really help pass the time on a rainy day. And at the end of the day, you know, Robert is the expert. It's his book. He's written it. He's going to be able to articulate everything much better than I ever could. So sit back and strap in. Robert, first and foremost, welcome back to People of Distinction, and thank you very much for being a guest once again. How you doing, man?
Well, I'm doing wonderful. I just moved into a nursing home, and they're wonderful people, and I'm having a ball.
There you have it. Fantastic. Well, nothing but continued success with that. And, you know, Robert, before we even go into the interview and we move into the questions, tell us a little bit more about what you've been up to since then. I know you just mentioned you just recently moved into a new nursing home. That's fantastic. But tell us a little bit more about what you've been up to, man.
Well, I've been learning to play cards again and playing beats and exercising and walking as much as I can and having some people come up and visit me. So it's been good.
Mm-hmm.
I may slur my words a little or misspeak because they have me on some strong pain medications because of a fall I took. I consider myself a researcher. I've intensely researched climate change, plastic in our ocean, overpopulation, the sixth great extinction event, and other things. But I mostly researched God. I studied at the Association for Research and Enlightenment and the Michigan Humanistic Research and Enlightenment because in 1969, God told me someday you'll heal with your hands. I finally became enlightened, and 2 years ago, and about 4 months ago, I finally learned what God meant when he said someday you'll heal with your hands. I researched you, and I found out that you're an academic, a great sportsman, and an actor good enough to share the stage with Tom Hanks. I am impressed.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. And, you know, I've been very blessed with the career that I have laid and will continue to lay. But a lot of wonderful experiences working with Tom on a number of projects was a blessing. And he's fantastic, man. Tom was great to work with. And all of the actors and the celebrities that I've had the pleasure to work with have always been fantastic and very welcoming. So I'm blessed for that. And, enough about me here, Robert. I appreciate you bringing it up. But of course, this is not about me today, people. This is about the amazing Robert Ackerman and his book, Buff. I mean, this is something special. This is something you're going to want to get involved in. And let's jump right into the very first question. Robert, your main protagonist is very unique. I mean, it's something taken directly out of a Hollywood film, taken directly out of a comic book series. But I want you to talk to us. How did you come about writing a character with this type of genetic abnormality?
While researching something, I ran into the diagnosis Myostatin-related Muscular Hypotrophy. So, of course, I had to research it. And I said to myself, there's a book in there. Myostatin keeps our muscles from getting too big. If you're one of the very few people who don't have myostatin in your body, you can get huge and extremely strong because myostatin keeps our muscles from getting too big. I decided to go big and make Buff to be the toughest man in the world. Somebody has to be the toughest in the world after all, don't they?
That is true. Listen, the obligation has to fall on someone. Might as well be this character, Buff, that you've created. I love it. Robert, curiosity for myself, man. I was one that was never, as an artist, I am blessed, right? And I have a lot of creativity and I love what I do, but I was never blessed with the gift of writing. Talk to us a little bit more. Was it hard for you to write this book?
The book seemed to practically write itself. I took a wrong turn in Buff's life once, but I soon got it back on track. Buff loved to fight several guys at once because in the book, he and his dad get beaten up by 6 guys, and they leave his dad a paraplegic. That's why his dad built a great big workout room. His dad saw to it that Buff got black belts in 3 martial arts. He learned Krav Maga, which is an Israeli martial art and self-defense system that translates to contact combat in Hebrew. It is a combination of techniques from other martial arts, including Aikido, boxing, judo, karate, Muay Thai, jiu-jitsu, and wrestling, and is known for its focus on real-world situations. He also got black belts in karate and jiu-jitsu. Buff worked out 6 days a week, and he became huge and extremely strong.
Robert, I have been one, on a number of occasions, I've pointed out the fact that representation is important. Across every art form, every medium, I do think that it's very beneficial when you see cultural diversity represented, right? Well, your main character, Buff, is a Native American. I want to hear it from you. Why did you choose to make him that particular ethnicity?
Well, I grew up with the Lakota Sioux where I was born, and I've worked with them my life. Mm-hmm. So I followed the Red Road, the Lakota Sioux way of life for many years. I participated in many ceremonies. In one sweat lodge that was organized for my healing problem, the medicine men called in 2 healing spirits. They were 2 big orbs of pulsating energy that were trimmed in gold. I had huge pursuers on both lower front legs. I had good stretching off the itchy packs that characterized psoriasis. I had bloody open sores that were about 8 inches long and 3 inches wide. And after the 3rd door, he rubbed bear grease into my wounds. Within 5 weeks, my psoriasis was completely cured.
People, I'm telling you, again, this is something you need to add to your shelf because there's a lot happening. I mean, in the age of these superhero films that seem to just come out every other day, this Marvel Cinematic Universe that we're currently being engulfed in. This is like a new interpretation of the Hulk. Honestly, that's the best representation that I have for it. The book is called Buff. It's available for purchase through Amazon as well as barnesandnoble.com. You have Robert Ackerman to thank for all of it. Head on over there today, pick up your copies, and get lost in this magnificent book. Robert, switching gears here, this book is incredible. It's very interesting, but I know your personal life is filled with some very interesting things as well. Tell us a little bit more about your backstory and some interesting things from your personal life.
Sure. I came back from Vietnam a disabled veteran. My depression was so bad that after working for some sweeps at 12 different jobs, some mornings I just couldn't get out of bed. I knew it wasn't fair to my bosses, so I decided to become a volunteer for the rest of my life. I became director of the Pennington County Drug and Alcohol Task Force. I became director of the Mead Street Halfway House, which I and James Craig started. I became director of the West River Soccer Refereeing Association. After refereeing more than 100 soccer games, I was in charge of teaching and testing all of the Western South Dakota referees. I coached a soccer team to win a state tournament. I hung clothes at the Salvation Army for a couple of years. I became director of the Keystone South Dakota Ambulance Service for 7 years. I became director of the West River Water Development District area and some other things.
You know, Robert, follow-up question that I would love to go into. Going back to your book, Buff, I think it has a great balance between being entertaining, but also having a great underlying foundation and a message that readers will be able to take. Tell us a little bit more about what you're hoping the readers take upon completing your book.
Well, first of all, I wrote Buff because I just hoped that the readers would get so involved in the book that they could forget about all their troubles or concerns for a few hours. I love thrillers. And beyond that, Buff interests me so much. He just came alive in my mind.
Yeah. There you have it. And listen, I would hope that this is not the only book that you have written or are going to write. So Robert, tell us a little bit more. What is happening with your writing? What's upcoming for you, man?
I have just finished my first draft of my autobiography. I believe I have to finish it because God told me in 1969, it's with your hand. Only a few months ago, I learned what God meant to heal with my hands. It is placing my hands on a person, but it is by learning what the word is. I learned that each letter has a meaning or several meanings. Depending on the context of what's written, each letter makes a sound.
Yeah, absolutely. And listen, you know, I often relish in the fact that having this platform as an artist myself, I always look for ways to pay it forward. Well, Robert, you are someone that has been through the process, man. You've written this magnificent book. You've gotten it published. As you mentioned, there is another one on the horizon. Hopefully many, many more. Well, I want to take this opportunity because you clearly have experience, which then has equated to wisdom. And now you can share that with our listening audience. What advice do you have to offer to a new writer, Robert?
Well, the first thing I'd say, read a lot of books. Write about what you know or have experienced. Research extensively. I think most people have something inspired in them or something very interesting in them. But only 1 out of 100 people who start a book finish it. Don't be one of the 99 people who don't finish it. It could take a couple of rewrites, but it's worth it. There's a great satisfaction in finishing a book.
Well, listen, I think that's great advice, Robert. I mean, really, everything that you said, but the main thing that I want to focus on is what you started with. People, it boils down to practice makes perfect. It doesn't matter what your particular craft may be. Bottom line is, in order to sharpen your tools, in order to become a quote unquote expert, right? I think the analogy is it takes 10,000 hours to become an expert into something. Now, I don't know. I haven't actually invested the time to see and calculate if that 10,000 hour benchmark is accurate. But bottom line here is invest your time, your effort, your energy into your craft. By doing so, That's how you're going to sharpen your skills. I love that advice. I think it's fantastic. It's definitely something we can all take to the bank. Writers and just people in general. This is something special here. Robert, follow-up question. You mentioned before you fought in the Vietnam War. So I want to take an opportunity and segue there for a second. What did you do in the Vietnam War?
I became a crew chief on a C-130 Hercules. They were cargo planes with 4 turboprop engines. They built C-130s from the 1950s to just a few years ago. They're all over and countries from all over the world bought them. I flew on missions over the Ho Chi Minh Trail, and we dropped flares that lit up the trail so that fighter bombers could drop their bombs on the trucks' convoys loaded with munitions. The Ho Chi Minh Trail was really 6,000 men first moving from North Vietnam through Laos down to South Vietnam, where they supplied the Viet Cong troops. I also spent a year in Vietnam. I still feel guilty about it because I found out that the jet fighter bombers dropped cluster bombs. And when the cluster bomb hits, the little bombers fly out and destroy the trucks, but the submarines explode. And to this date, some Laotians are still stepping on those little bombs and blowing off their legs and losing a leg or maybe their life. So I feel a lot of guilt about that.
Wow.
And then I found out that when I got back, I researched the war and stuff, and I found out I was immoral in the League of War. And my older brother Bill had tried to get me to go to Canada with him, but I told him I couldn't because all of Dad's World War II friends said we had to stop the communists over there. Now, my brother Bill had an IQ of 165, and that's 5 points higher than Einstein's IQ, so I should have listened to him. But Bill said, I said I couldn't go, so Bill said, I only have 3 choices. I can go to Canada, or go to jail, or go and join the Peace Corps. It turned out that Bill joined the Peace Corps, and I joined the Air Force. I was promised by the recruiter that I absolutely would not have to go to Vietnam, and that I'd be an electronic specialist, which sounded great. 6 months later, I was in Vietnam, and my brother Bill was in the Peace Corps, teaching and helping Colombians how to drill clean drinking water. Bill got a baby dysentery while working in the mountains, so he went to a hospital in Bogota. They said they didn't have room for him, but to come back Monday when they'd have a bed for him. He was found in a coma in his hotel room on Sunday. They sent a full medical team in a C-133 from Dover, Delaware, but Bill died on the plane on Thanksgiving Day, 1968. I still feel guilty that he died and I lived. He was an extremely handsome man, and I wonder what would have happened if we'd have gone to Canada.
You know, Robert, I'm my sincerest apologies and condolences with the passing of your brother. You know, you mentioned earlier during this interview a fall that you had withstood recently. Well, just checking in on you personally, Robert, how is your health?
Well, a month ago, I moved into the Michael J. Fitzmore South Dakota State Veterans Nursing Home. That's a mouthful. Because a neurologist said my short-term memory was getting worse and worse. I gave the nursing home collection of 24 pastel chalk masterpieces painted by Danny Callahan. Danny had gotten caught selling meth, and he got 17 years for it. And then he practiced for 17 Cheyenne Native American asked him in his first year in prison if he'd like to learn how to paint with pastel chalk. Danny said, sure. Danny painted for 17 years while in prison, but he couldn't sell them in prison. He had to give them to other inmates for candy bars or other things. He got out of prison and he moved back with his brothers. Right away, he got hooked up with meth again, and as soon as he was selling it, he got caught again and spent 17 more years in prison, where he kept painting until he became probably the best pastel chalk painter of wildlife in the world. When I was hanging clothes at the Salvation Army, I met Danny, who was a minimum security trustee, and I befriended him right away. I saw him hanging on the wall. They told me Danny Callahan had painted it. I asked him as soon as I could find him if I could buy it, and he said he had already told him. After that, I bought every painting I could from him. I missed buying from him only 4 of his paintings, but eventually I got prints of them that now hang in my room at the nursing home. I bought 25 of Danny's original paintings, and I had them expensively framed. I had the Danny Callahan Gallery in my home, so when I came here, I donated my paintings to the home here. And I had Googled pictures of the best chalk paintings of wildlife in the world, and Danny's are better than all of them as far as I'm concerned. Sadly, Danny died from leukemia 4 months ago. If he could have painted for a decade or so more, I think he would have become the most famous pastel chalk painter in the world. When I moved to the Michael Disforce home, I donated my paintings to them. 23 of them are hanging close to the front door, and are up on my pot, I guess, because I live here, they put a couple on my pot.
It's fantastic. Now, Robert, listen, man, you are someone that has lived an incredibly interesting life. I know I asked earlier about your life and interesting things that have happened, but I feel like there might be some more. So talk to us. Are there any other interesting things about your life that you could share with us right now?
Well, I sure found this interesting. In 1971, I was led by God to Bethlehem Cave. Brigitte said that it included chapel in the cave for midnight mass. I considered myself a Catholic, but not a Roman Catholic. Many of our friends went to the mass, so it was also a social event. The next morning, I decided to go early to Bethlehem Cave to meditate in my search for God. I couldn't find the light switch at the time, so I made a torch out of pamphlets and brochures and lit it and went deep into the cave until I would be in total darkness. I was just ready to snuff out the torch when God took his spirit from it. It left me in total darkness. Immediately, because I was disoriented and I didn't try to find my thoughts and something. But then I remembered Christmas Day was the next day, so I figured somebody had come in on Christmas Day, but nobody did. When I thought I had been in the cave for 2 days and 2 nights, I remembered from a Western movie I had seen that when a cowboy was dying of thirst, he rubbed the dirt off a pebble, popped it into his mouth, and it produced saliva. I found the pebble, rubbed it off, popped it into my mouth, and all I got was dirt in my mouth. And I tried to spit it out, but of course I couldn't because I had no saliva. Yeah. I thought I had spent at least 3 days and 3 nights in the cave when I knew I was dying of thirst. I knew that when I laid my head down to sleep, I wouldn't wake up again. And I started to say, God, into your hands I commend my spirit. As soon as my cave hit the cave floor, the lights came on the cave. Some girls from the retreat were coming in, and then this one girl saw me. She said, "Look, a hermit." I was covered in dust and dirt from my head to my feet. I couldn't get out of that cave fast enough. I went to the priest's house where he drank 2 gallons of Kool-Aid and another gallon of water. He cooked some eggs and toast for me, and I gobbled them down. I really should have had an ID. I learned that I had been in the cave for 3 days and 16 hours. I knew I was in God's hands, but I didn't know exactly what that meant.
You know, Robert, you are now branching on something that I think is very important to touch up on. So first and foremost, I'd love to give you the opportunity and you can decide, but would you like to share more about your spiritual life?
I sure would. I learned that the Roman Catholic Church affirmed Jesus was the Son of God, the only begotten Son of God, not made of the same substance as the Father, or indeed of the same substance as the Father, at the First Council of Nicaea in 325 AD. When you become enlightened, you will all know that we're all of the same substance of God, but Jesus was the man and Christ was the consciousness. I believe that before the great expansion, before he created the physical universe as we know it, that God was a singularity of infinite density, infinite gravity, and infinite intelligence. After he began his universe, he had the great expansion. We were souls with him from the beginning. God is omnipresent. So more and more, I know that all I have to do to talk to God is to just speak to him. He's in everything. And he hears our prayers. The Lakota Sioux had taught for thousands of years that we are all relatives. They prayed Matakwe Awesome, which means all my relatives. Mm-hmm. They were related to the buffalo, they knew. And so when they kill a buffalo, they'd rejoice and cry because they were killing a relative. They made the horns into tools. They made the buffalo characters. They made the hide for making their teepees, and they made clothes. They used every part of the buffalo. The white men killed 50 million buffalo to kill Dakotas and other tribes, cultures. The Pine Ridge Reservation is in the poorest county in the United States. They need our help.
You know, people, as I'm listening to Robert talk, I'm struck with the realization that this autobiography that he's currently working on is going to be magnificent. This man's life is entertaining, is intriguing, but there's a lot of great positive messages to be found there as well. You're going to have to be on the lookout for it because it's not available for purchase just yet, but it's Amazon, it's Barnes & Noble. It's going to start with his book, Buff. That is a fantastic journey that you're going to want to embark upon. Like I said, entertaining to no end, but a great underlying message as well. Hey, listen, Robert is onto something special here. And for those of you that missed the first time that he was on our network, you are in luck because this one was just as good, if not better. And I'm biased. That's my own personal opinion. But Robert is someone that is beyond impressive. The absolute embodiment of a person of distinction. And I'm telling you, his books are something you need to get lost in. So it's Amazon, it's Barnes & Noble, it's all the regular online book resellers. His name is Robert Ackerman, and his book is called Buff. Check back in frequently for his autobiography the moment it becomes available. You can thank me later because this is something you're going to want to take to the bank. Robert, this has been a true pleasure, man, an absolute delight. Thank you once again for being a guest on People of Distinction.
Well, you couldn't have been nicer, and it's been my privilege.